In the world of short-form content, there's a phenomenon where songs become popular, but no one knows exactly where they came from. This song, I know you've heard before, is a great example of it. But did you know it was actually taken from a sample of this song? This is Young Girl A by Siinamota. You've probably heard it sampled in hundreds of TikToks that show tragedy or determination or just cool anime music videos. And since the pandemic, it's been seeing quite the resurgence. This song and its creator have an incredibly interesting but dark and depressing background, and I feel like it's a story that needs to be known. Siinamota, real name Mizuguchi Ryu, was born March 9th, 1995, and even at a young age, he had a passion for music. One of his earliest memories of music is in electone class, where the instructor rudely said, "Don't talk to me until you can play it," which is just rude. Siinamota noted that this made him cry. He was upset at the situation, but his passion for music would only grow. Siinamota would continue his musical endeavors even throughout high school in brass club and marching band. Unfortunately, he would quit due to bullying. He said he was bullied by senior girls who would dump out his bag and throw things at him. Around this time, he learned about Hatsune Miku and immersed himself in it. He was blown away about the Vocaloid music and couldn't stop thinking about it. Vocaloid is a singing software that lets users, quote, sing by typing in lyrics and melody. It creates these songs with specially recorded vocals of voice actors or singers, usually paired with models to give them more depth to the song. One of the most recognized examples of Vocaloids is, of course, Hatsune Miku.
Hello everyone, I'm Scott, president of Domino's Pizza. Have you heard of Hatsune Miku?
Siinamota would use Miku in a lot of his works, along with Kagami Ren. When just in their second year of junior high, they began posting on the Japanese equivalent of YouTube, Nico Nico. He posted under the name of PowaPowa P and became fairly popular. One song, Strobe Blast, has over 1 million views on Nico Nico. Siinamota would pour his soul into each song, and you can feel it with each beat and hear his heart in each lyric. Despite the fame, Sina was still a child. He was still a kid and blowing up in the Vocaloid scene. However, he would think that people would not take too kindly if he was a kid, so he posted online that he was actually in college. He would eventually come clean that he was just in junior high, and in his words, things got really noisy. He got a lot of hate online for this and would take a brief hiatus from making music, until the label Ginga reached out to Sina and offered him a spot on their label. Siinamota would say the following about this time in his life. "Now that I think about it, I think that you shouldn't show off your unhappiness or happiness to others. But at that time I showed it off and said things like, I'm going to die. I was a little nervous and I couldn't help but look at the bad things about myself on the internet and the things I shouldn't have seen." In March 2012, Siinamota would release their debut album, You May Know Money Money, At the Mercy of a Dream. The album would do exceptionally well, especially from an at the time 16-year-old. Siinamota would go on to say that being signed to Ginga actually helped him get out of his funk. However, at the same time, Sina felt shut in, alone, and not a part of society as a whole. He had dropped out of high school, and by the time he was 18, most people would be looking to go to college or join the workforce, when he was just in his apartment making Hatsune Miku tracks. Eventually, he would do some collabs with some other artists, such as J-pop singer Shiho Nanaba. He said it was weird for him because he's normally just used to working with Vocaloid software, not people. He would say, Vocaloid songs are physically incapable of being sung by humans. Vocaloids don't need to take breaths. That's why Shiho Nanaba seemed to be having a very hard time singing, and I'm sorry for that. I usually only finish it in my room. Pressing a button like that in the studio, running a pen on a piece of paper and saying, "This is how it is," was an experience that I would never have been able to do alone. Sina went from being a hikikomori or a shut-in to being out in the world and working in a recording studio, having a significantly much more contact with the human world and society as a whole. He would even end up doing some live performances. Finally being a part of society for quite some time, he started to live his life. He had friends, experiences, and the thing that a majority of his works would be about, relationships. Beyond this, he was a very busy bee. He'd worked with artists like previously mentioned Shiho Nanaba. He wrote and produced the theme song for Divine Gate X Hatsune Miku. He worked with several manga artists, and was even involved in a fashion collab. I like you, Siinamota, but I'd say 2/3 of the outfits I see you in are overalls, so I really don't see you as a fashion icon. I mean, honestly, I can't really talk, so. Eventually, Siinamota would end up changing music labels. He would change it to UMAA, which is a label that he said that he had admired for a very long time. However, now he would actually have an office to work in. A former hikikomori, he was not used to office life, and when he was offered free Red Bull, it actually blew his mind. That collab was actually coinciding with the release of his third album, Altur Setsuna Pop. Because of this collab, he'd gain a demographic of fans from young teens to females in their early 20s. According to the biography on his website, it says, providing much influence in their fashion and beauty in which he created. Again, I don't see it, but the outfits he collabed with are cute, I guess. On the cusp of turning 20, the album Ikiru, otherwise known as Alive. The album was a look back on his, quote, manga-like life, as he put it. It's also noted that this was his last album he would make, and it's a masterpiece. With some of my favorite tracks being Goodbye Everyone, Apocalypse for All, and of course, Young Girl A. The whole album was a view into his mind, and we see themes of loneliness, self-doubt, and the relationships between people. Siinamota is quoted in an interview with Sinra, "Adults often tell me, you're young, so it's still okay to make mistakes. But I don't think that's true. So while people say things like that, it's okay if you stumble sometimes, I tell them it's cold, 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 cold." Which is a part of the chorus for Young Girl A. The term gender A is usually used when interviewing victims of crimes or something traumatic for someone who wishes to remain anonymous. Using this most likely as a metaphor of the sadness he feels while talking about how he doesn't seem to have a defined identity in the world. This would be his last full album that he would make, unbeknownst to all, but on retrospect, the final track is called Goodbye Everyone. On July 23rd, 2015, Siinamota would upload a song called Red Pen Onigasu, or Please Give Me a Red Pen. A red pen in Japanese culture has many different meanings. One meaning is a lot of times when grading, people use red pens. In his song, he says that he is reevaluating his life, in which he will be using a red pen to reevaluate it with. While another belief about the red pen is that in Japanese culture, it is associated with the end of life. Unfortunately, both of these are fitting, as only 30 minutes after posting this song, his label would come out with an announcement. Our artist, Siinamota, PowaPowa P, real name Ryo Mizuguchi, passed away on July 23rd, 2015. He was 20 years old, and we express our deep gratitude for the kindness shown to him during his lifetime and respectfully inform you of his passing. Siinamota's passing rocked the Vocaloid community. With the ominous timing and possible meaning of red pen, along with his final tweet, which read, "They say that becoming an adult means losing your charm. It seems like we shouldn't grow up, huh?" With these, it really does seem like he may have done it himself. We may never know for certain, as the cause was never released to the public out of respect for the privacy of the families, which I feel is the correct move. Just at the young age of 20, Siinamota was gone. It takes a lot to be open and vulnerable about your emotions, and Siinamota was never afraid to show them at all. A lot of his music was him struggling and venting and showing himself to the world. Red Pen feels a lot like a goodbye note, especially with these lyrics. The first circle that I've drawn is the last circle I've drawn. If you see what I've done, now that is a weird one. My score adds to none. Siinamota lives on in the Vocaloid community with edits, TikToks, reels, animations, remixes, and even an album that posthumously dropped after his passing. One of the remixes that made Siinamota's music come back into the limelight was by an artist sampling his work for a slowed-down version called Paranoia. Paranoia is actually the song that I played at the beginning of this video, and it's a little controversial. Some say that the artist Kenteshi is profiting off of Siinamota's passing, some say that it's just a remix of Young Girl A, and others say that Kenteshi is honoring Siinamota's work. Sampling is a weird gray area, as a lot of artists do it, but I don't feel like he was necessarily trying to just profiteer off of Siinamota's passing. Because of this renewed popularity, Siinamota's Young Girl A has surpassed 150 million plays on YouTube and 100 million listens on Spotify. On what would have been Siinamota's birthday, March 9th, 2023, his former label would release a remix of Young Girl A in honor of him. The One Day After Another remix by Siinamota, one of Siinamota's old friends. To quote Siinamota directly from Siinamota's website, only you know what kind of feelings you had when you wrote those lyrics, whichever the song, so I'll leave the detailed self-interpretation in my head. I feel the innocence that comes from the youthfulness of the song, but I also feel that I had the same feeling at some point in my life. I felt the irritation of not being able to do anything about it. No matter what we do, the world and our daily lives just go on, one by one, seemingly oblivious to our mixed feelings of frustration and inability to do anything about it. I titled the remix One Day After Another to express this feeling. When I looked at the information about the announcement to the tribute album, I felt envious. I considered you my rival. I was surprised and was very honored that I was given the opportunity to remix the song and that it has become the leading track. As beloved as Young Girl A is, I think one of the songs that gives a glimpse into the mind of Siinamota the best is most likely Goodbye Everyone. It's fittingly also the last track on his album, as I previously stated. When you read how dark the lyrics are compared to the upbeat tone of the song, and even in the music video with the confetti and happy themes, it's really a stark difference. It tells of how growing up is dark, scary, and confusing, and that our relationships, while are wonderful, they can also break, and the despair that it creates can be devastating. This music video also does a great job capturing the theme by showing a child essentially digivolving as the song goes on, which is made extra haunting as it's one of the few songs that Siinamota actually sings himself on. Myself feeling time moving forward, I've never really felt like an adult. One of the reasons I think I enjoy Siinamota so much is because I have a fairly similar outlook on relationships and his views on growing up. I've always felt like an overgrown child. I don't know when I became a grown-up with responsibility or a job or with people who depend on me. I don't know when I'm going to feel like an adult. I don't know when I'm going to feel like the person my parents wanted to be or the person that society expects me to be. And I'm sure in some small way, I kind of understand how Siinamota, or rather Ryo Mizuguchi, felt. I just wish he had some friends, family, or a support system he could have relied on to talk out his issues. He used his music to rant, and I know when it was coming out, a lot of people were not kind to him, but I just wish someone would have talked to him and helped him out because he's a bright dude. I still can't listen to Young Girl A without getting goosebumps. Siinamota's legacy is an interesting one. I had never heard of Young Girl A until recently when it blew up in short-form content, and I fell in love with the song. I was never a big Vocaloid guy, but hearing this guy's stuff has really changed my view on the genre, and if I'm being honest, it's really the first time I've felt anything in a long time. I'm grateful for Mizuguchi Ryu for making Young Girl A. The work he did and impact he left on so many people is astounding. He felt like he lost his charm when he grew up, or didn't feel mature enough to meet the expectations of the roles associated to certain ages and times in his life. Holding on to thoughts of resentment and angst, but want to still be understood. So I'm glad that Young Girl Ace is still going strong through memes and TikToks, because that means the memory of Siinamota lives on too. Thank you for sticking around. This video took a lot out of me mentally, so I do appreciate if you made it all the way end, and I think I'm gonna go lay down now. Special thanks to all those on the screen here. I literally cannot do this without you. I don't know when the next one's coming out, but thanks for coming along for the ride with me. Anyway, I just want to say thank you, and as always, cheers.